7:01. I will call a common council meeting to order. Could we have roll call, please?
Iverson.
Present.
Schatzinger.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Gallops.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Kotsky.
Here.
Sorensen.
Here.
Split.
Here.
We have a quorum.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
I am Reverend Jeffrey Dodson from First Congregational Church of Ripon. Please be with me in the spirit of prayer. Holy One, we gather with neighbors tonight in our common pursuit of creating the community we desire. Yet the community we desire is often limited by what we can imagine and what we can accomplish on our own. Inspire us to create a community you desire, one that can come about and be sustained by all of us working together with you. A vibrant community, safe, peaceful, thoughtful, respectful, growing, leading, and always becoming Ripon good. And as we go about the business tonight in these chambers, let us be mindful of those neighbors whom we represent, speak on behalf of, and advocate for alone we can accomplish what is in our hearts, while together we can accomplish what is in your heart. Watch over our city of Ripon, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
All right, is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by David, seconded by Paige. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That is approved.
It's gonna be one of those nights.
All right. I do have some public comment this evening. We have some representatives from the Ripon Senior Center Association. If you'd like to step forward, state your names.
Thank you. My name's Annette Klein, 433 Murray Park Drive.
Joanne Naparello, 778 Hillside Terrace.
Dennis Sleep, 826 Congress Street.
And I am the past president of the Ripon Senior Center Association Incorporated. The new president was busy tonight, so I'm filling in. Joanne is the president, secretary, and Dennis is a board member, and he's been on for several years. Both of them have. And a lot of people don't understand and know about us. We are a private organization. We are kind of like the Friends of the Library. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we have been raising money these past few years since we heard about the Mitchell monies. And in the past few years, we have worked our butts off. Mine's back here. Sorry. But we do brat fries. We do 3 of those a year. We do a huge rummage sale with all donations. Bake sales. We sell Webster's coupons for pizzas and subs. And I'm really proud of this group. Like I would say, I was a president before, and how hard they have all worked and done such wonderful things. We want to present some money tonight to the city on behalf of us. We are funding the appliances in the kitchen, and there's another $10,000 in here that was a donation for the hearing loop and PA system. And there's another $2,500 in here from the, I hope I say this right, Oberlich Foundation out of Marquezan, and that's also for the...
Oberich.
Oberich?
Oberich.
Okay, thank you, Howie. For the hearing loop and PA system. So on behalf of our group, I'd like to present to the mayor this check for $26,500.
Oh, thank you. That's a good one. I'll take that one. Ted can have that.
Holy moly.
You're still in it, bud. Let me get one more. Thank you.
I also think I did that. There still is more money in the association treasury, so if the city needs more for certain things, there's also another $1,000 from Webster's grant they gave us for kitchen, like say a coffee pot, things like that, silverware, dishes, glassware, like that. So we have more money there that's available, so feel free to contact the association in the future if there's some special need and we can help. And they're still working like the Dickens, and I quit.
Thank you.
All right, looks like we have 2 representatives from DHS in Madison. Would you like to speak separately or together?
You can speak separately.
All right, if you'd like to step forward and state your name for the record.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Russ Dunkel. I'm the State Dental Director and Chief Dental Officer for the state of Wisconsin. Address would be 1 West Wilson, Madison, near the Capitol. I want to thank the City Council for allowing us to speak this evening, and also to the citizens of Ripon for hearing us. The reason we're here is, we've seen some of the concerns that the community of Ripon has regarding water issues, especially as it relates to fluoride and chlorine. So we're here and any way we can to try to help the community moving forward. My goal as the Chief Dental Officer of the state is to ensure the health and safety of every citizen in the state of Wisconsin. And along with community water fluoridation, we feel that's a strong benefit for the community. Now, what I don't want to dismiss is the serious concerns that you have for the safety of your water operators. We know that fluoride and chlorine in combinations improperly mixed causes a health hazard and would be at severe risk for the water operator. So what we'd like to do is, if we can, help answer any questions that relate to, cost expenditures or also issues with fluoride. For example, one of the myths is when they talk about toothpaste is, as long as people are using toothpaste, then they don't necessarily need community water fluoridation. That's not true. They act completely separately. They act together, but they also act separately. Toothpaste acts as basically a topical effect. So what's the first thing, just for example, what's the first thing you do after you brush your teeth, or most people do? They spit the toothpaste out and rinse their mouth. So that topical benefit has minimal effect for a length of time. Whereas the community water fluoridation is absorbed by the body and is released over time through the saliva. So it has a different type benefit. That's why, for example, when I was in clinical practice, we had patients who had a high caries risk. Many times we'd recommend floss, brush your teeth, and then afterwards use a fluoride mouth rinse and not rinse, so you'd get more of that topical benefit. The other thing to consider, unfortunately, is after COVID, as a state representative, I'm also in both Department of Public Health, but I'm also in Medicaid services. And one of the things that we've seen, unfortunately, over the past several years with COVID is the rise in members that have had to become Medicaid recipients. Unfortunately, what we see in the state of Wisconsin is about 22 to 25% of the population, as it ranges, is on Medicaid at any given time. That translates into about between 1.3 and 1.5 million people at any given time. And in this community, I believe in the Fond du Lac County area, at times it's been in the neighborhood of 28%. And that doesn't even address the people who are uninsured and have no insurance, even state aid at all. So, and then that's the other problem that we're having, is the fact that unfortunately not a lot of dental providers accept Medicaid. I'm working on that with Medicaid and the Public Health and the Wisconsin Dental Association, but unfortunately it's still a slow go. So we're still working on that issue, and that's why it's important that we try to maintain community water fluoridation, because there are people, unfortunately, that if they're, a certain level below the federal poverty level, some of them can't even buy toothpaste. So it's a matter of putting food on the table or actually being able to buy toothpaste for their family. So what are they going to pick? Now, is there any questions that I can answer for the board that you can think of?
If you'd like to stick around when we get to that part of the meeting, if there's any questions for you, we'd
Yeah, and I was going to make that offer that we would stick around till the fluoride issue is done, because my colleague is going to talk a little bit about some of our conversations with the DNR that we've used to try to see how we can help the community. Fortunately, it's kind of a tough act to follow. I don't have a $26,000 check to give you currently, but we are working with some other partners within the state to see if we might be able to come up with some financial assistance for the community if you decide to move forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carrie Spencer. I'm a registered dental hygienist with the Department of Health Services. I just wanted to share a few important things about community water fluoridation with you tonight. So in America, roughly 74% of Americans receive community water fluoridation if they're on a public system. In Wisconsin, we're fortunate to be higher. About 85% of our population that receive community water fluoridation have fluoride. The city of Ripon has been doing a great job with their community water fluoridation. The CDC has actually awarded the city of Ripon an award of excellence for 2021. That means you've been operating at optimal levels for the 12 months of the whole year. So that is something to be proud of, not something all communities have received. So the DNR, I contacted them when I heard that the city of Ripon was having some issues with their sanitary survey and just saying, what are the options? How can the city help the city continue to fluoridate? We know it's a very important thing. So we kind of had some discussions of, what were the options available to your city to continue the fluoridation? And one of the options that they said other communities use and is the most cost effective is the chemical storage lockers. So they, when I spoke with them today, they stated they saw no issues with those plans being approved. From there, that information kind of helped me determine, is this something we can go to community partners for additional funding? We have grant funds available. It kind of gave me an idea of how much money are you talking? Is it $500,000? Because I don't have $500,000 to give. But with the storage lockers, it sounds like something that is certainly within the ask to go to those partners. So if it's something the city of Ripon would decide they were interested in, kind of the next steps would be to initiate the plans with the DNR. From there, once that's initiated, and we know that things can improve, we can go to the community partners to see how we can assist you with funding and grant opportunities. I know there's also some concern about safety. I brought some handouts today. So I have some handouts here just about the importance of community water fluoridation, safety for water operators, and if there was ever any additional training or assistance with that, I'm sure I could reach out to the DNR engineer as well, that they would be happy to help with that. So I want to thank you for your time tonight. I'm going to pass these out. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, that is the last of public comment. Next item would be the consent calendar. Would there be a motion to approve the consent calendar as published?
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved by John, seconded by Paige. Sorry, Doug. Any discussion or to pull any of the reports? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent calendar, say aye.
Aye. I've got it.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. All right, moving into our agenda items. Our first item is professional service agreement with SEH for pilot wells. Jeremy? Or Adam? Who would like to speak?
Want to introduce me? I guess. Yeah, this is our engineer, Dan Schaefer with SEH, here to present an agreement for pilot well drilling.
So I too have a tough act to follow. I don't have money to give away. Adam and Jeremy asked me to come tonight to kind of give an update and a little bit of background on where we're at with construction of new wells and what that process looks like. Some of you were likely here last July when we presented the results of the water master plan. So my presentation, once Adam has it up.
Pull it up. Oh, I hate this.
We'll pick up kind of where that left off, and I'll be very brief here and going into too much detail.
Hold on. You have it all on your packet.
There we go.
Oh, come on. Why would you do that? I want this one. Okay.
So just a little bit of background. Our involvement with the water utility started really back in 2018 with the DNR's directive for the city to proceed through a corrosion control treatment study, which was completed and took a while for DNR to come back with their approval and recommendations. And stemming from that, we've got a submittal into DNR as we speak regarding optimization for corrosion control. We expect approval here within the next 3 or 4 weeks or so. But then shortly thereafter, was mentioned by the DHS representatives about the sanitary survey. So the one that really triggered the master plan was the 2019 survey. And that noted several deficiencies that needed to be addressed, of which the master plan was the big requirement. And I'll go into a little more detail in a coming slide on that. And then just recently, the sanitary survey was once again completed, which led to the aforementioned fluoride discussion. I'm not getting into that here. I'll leave that to Jeremy in the next agenda item. So what were some of the big takeaways from the master plan? Obviously, well number 5 is the city's oldest well currently in use. Not only the age and the condition, but also the design of that well has long exceeded its useful life. It's on a parcel of land still owned by Alliant, so there's certainly some need there to replace well number 5. So one of the recommendations in the master plan was to decommission that well. And in order to do so, we needed to secure additional well capacity. So in order to do that, well number 10 would replace well 5 upon decommissioning, and well number 11 would be added to provide future firm capacity. Right now, if the city's operating with any of the wells offline, they're running on the ragged edge, basically. So these were the 2 recommendations in terms of capacity. So constructing a new well doesn't happen overnight. The slide on the screen here kind of gives you an idea of from here where we are tonight, should you approve proceeding with the well site investigation report, what that overall timeline may look like in order to have a fully operational production well. So we can see here DNR and PSC are involved throughout the process, the first of which is completing this well site investigation report. Subsequently, upon approval of that report, pilot well construction and testing, determine water quality and quantity before you get into the full design of a production well. So then we see the last few items here pertaining to construction of that production well, well house, etc. So we can see that this overall schedule, optimistically 3 years, but in all likelihood 3 to 5 year effort to work your way through, depending on the logistics, whether or not the city needs to purchase land to site a new well, any other characteristics that could come up. So in front of you, we put together an agreement that encompasses 3 main tasks as part of that first bullet on the previous slide. First one is project management. Second one, well site investigation, report preparation, and then finally producing bidding documents to construct a pilot well. So in the next few slides, I'll go over those in just a little bit more detail. Task 1, really just our effort to help be the go-between between the city, DNR, and PSC, make sure the project stays on schedule, on budget, and approvals are given on a timely basis. Task 2 is really the meat and potatoes of the well site investigation report. So as part of the master plan, we look back to some of the older documents on file. One in particular goes back to 2007. There was another well siting study completed at that time. I've got a figure up here in a slide showing some of the results of that. But really what we're going to do is take the top sites from that study, as well as 2 that we looked at from the water master plan going back to last summer, and evaluate them for what I would call potential red flags. So for each of those sites, you can see some of the information we're going to look at. Setback requirements from potential contamination sources, topography, floodplains, wetlands, the geology and the hydrogeology. So once we've gone through at a higher level with those 7 sites, we'll sit down and we'll meet with city staff to narrow that down to 2 sites, basically 2 preferred sites for the future well 10 and well 11. And then once we come to agreement with city staff and DNR involvement through that early process of the 7, we'll do a more detailed analysis and a full-blown well site investigation report on the top 2 sites. So just a little bit more background. One of the key parameters here is obviously if the city owns parcels that could be developed into a future well, those are the low-hanging fruit. If we find sites that maybe require a land transfer, land transaction, obviously there's some additional time involved to go down that path. So it's hard to see, but all the light blue or cyan lines here are city-owned parcels. Obviously some of these are already parks, other municipal facilities, water tower sites, well sites, etc. But this is a good screening tool. And then if we transition to what was looked at in 2007, the previous report, we can see some X's on this map and 5 areas outlined. So we see areas 1 through 5. And the conclusion at that time was that area 3 was the preferred area to look for to site a well. And you can see 1 X in that area that had a potential site. So that's one of the 7 that we'll look into in a little more detail. We'll review some of the red flags that maybe took areas 1, 2, 4, and 5 out of the running, and use some of this work that's already been done to help us proceed with the overall well site investigation report. Then finally, in the master plan, we came up with this concept. So here we see the area surrounding well number 5 with the aligned parcel in the middle there with well 5. And 2 currently unoccupied city-owned sites that kind of straddle this to the east and to the north. And the concept here was to try and minimize transmission main distances from a future water treatment plant serving both new wells. So I would say this is kind of that perfect world situation, that if the well site investigation report pans out that these are 2 feasible sites, this is kind of a representation of what that project might look like, and this is really what the master plan had shown for the capital investment. So these are the other 2 sites we will be digging into in a little bit more detail. So then, as I mentioned, once we get DNR approval of a well site investigation report, the next step is to really do your due diligence and construct a pilot well so you can gain the water quality information for that particular site and the water quantity information to be sure you have a feasible well that'll produce what you're looking for. So the last task in what we've got in front of you in the agreement is really for us to prepare bidding documents so a well driller could come in and complete that pilot well for well number 10. So right now we're taking this in a stepwise fashion. We're doing the investigations for wells 10 and 11, but only proceeding with the pilot well for well 10 at this point. I know I went quickly. I heard you have a very full agenda, but I would gladly entertain any questions if you have any.
All right, you were, well, 10 is the one we're looking to do right now. 11's a little more in the future.
Correct. So when I didn't include this slide, but when the city went through capital planning last year after we presented the master plan, we had kind of an intermediate term and then a longer term and sequenced them chronologically. The other capital project at play is existing well number 8, rehabbing that well. And the priority of that is sequenced in before well 11 and the potential treatment plant, at least with the way it was outlined in the master plan.
So this is just to do pretty much to get well 10,
To get,
location, water, all that good
to
stuff.
get the well 10 and well 11 location
Oh, you
narrowed
will do
down,
the location.
but only do
Okay.
a pilot well at the location for well 10.
Okay.
I don't see a key per se on the second map, the 2007 well siting investigation summary. What do the red lines versus the yellow lines versus the blue lines?
Excellent question. So that's actually a representation of the water main within the city. What I truncated off was the legend showing what size water main that is. So some of that water main may have changed since 2007. We've got a figure in the master plan that has the current 2021 water main distribution system that would be reflected. So that's what you're not seeing is what size the water main is. Those are those colored lines. And obviously, there's been some development since 2007 that may impact some of the sites that were chosen at that time. So that'll be part of the analysis are some of these previously viable sites still viable as a potential well site. Anything else?
So just on a follow-up to that,
Sure.
I mean, your job as a professional is to look at, I see that you had mentioned area 3, and that has more green and blue versus red. And again, I don't know the size of what that means, if that's good or not, but as far as additional costs that may be involved regarding the infrastructure to allow a well, is that something that you take into consideration?
Correct. So when we come back with the high-level look at the 7 sites and meet with city staff, that's really the prioritization we'll go through is, all right, if you pick a site, such as the one you referenced in Area 3, you're further away, that means you may need to lay a transmission line to get it into the system at the capacity you need. So there are certainly costs to weigh with each site, as well as just what are the potential contamination sources of being in close proximity to some of the other things we look at.
I can just add in terms of steps in the process, this is something short of just one report we did 16 years ago, 15 years ago. We haven't gone down this road for a while. You know, everybody's kind of been step-by-step approach, water master plan, see issues. And this is kind of beginning the path to drill, you know, our first own municipal well, not one that we've inherited. So it's a big step. It's a required step to make sure we don't get to a point where we're drilling a well and wasting money on bad water or a bad site. You know, it's $41,300. We have that budgeted for next year. But we're just recommending it be approved, and we continue to work on it with the goal of having a new municipal well designed out and installed within 3 to 5 years.
Last question for me is that how do we know, and is this something that you work with cities or is this a totally different entity? How do we know what is the water capacity, for lack of a better term, from us, of what our city is able to tap into? I guess what I'm trying to say is, do we know if we have water reserved for 100 years, for 20 years? Is that something you help us look into?
So that's beyond my expertise, but we have hydrogeologists on our team that go into, and I didn't want to get into too much technical detail. I had a profile of the aquifer that all the city's current wells are in that gets into some of that. Exactly what you're asking is, what is the capacity if we drill, say, 200 feet versus going into the next layer in that aquifer and go down deeper, and you'd see what the existing 4 wells, they're all in varying depths, but certainly that's something that we enlist our hydrogeologists, and they're very familiar with the formations in this part of the state.
Anyone else have any questions? No?
Thank you.
Would anyone like to make a motion to approve this agreement?
I'll make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve this agreement.
Gets it.
Doug have it.
Would you like to second it?
I will second it.
So a motion's been made by Doug, seconded by Howard. Any discussion on the motion to approve the agreement?
So we're looking at no more than 41.3, or is that a ballpark figure? What are we?
That's the cost to take this step by step to get us through tasks 1, 2, and 3 as described, yeah, so 41,300, that's,
Okay.
you know, so.
And the one thing I didn't mention, obviously, we're preparing bidding documents. Once you go out to bid, the well drilling costs are not our costs. That would be whatever contractor would
Yep,
We'd have
that's
to
it.
award the project.
And that ranges anywhere from, what are you seeing? Do you have any?
It would depend on the depths we need to go to, and I don't have a good cost per foot right now. It's one question I wasn't prepared to answer today.
I've done one that was about 20, 25,000, so.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agreement with SEH, say aye.
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 Opposed? That is approved. Thank you. All right, moving on to a discussion on the suspension of the City of Ripon water fluoridation program. Jeremy.
All right. So Dave and I presented the sanitary survey to you a couple months ago. One of the significant deficiencies in the report that we touched on was how our chemicals are improperly stored at our well sites and the options that we have to resolve it. So this is just kind of a quick review of the significant deficiency with pictures. Chlorine gas and fluoride acid are both very hazardous and potentially deadly chemicals. Wisconsin Administrative Code is requiring that fluoride in its acid form be housed in a separate room away from controls, electrical contacts, and other equipment subject to damage. The reason for this is the fluoride and the fluoride vapor is extremely corrosive to all metals, which causes them to rust prematurely. So if you actually went into one of the rooms that has fluoride in it, pretty much every piece of metal in there is going to have rust on it as well too, which further, you have to replace those things sooner than I guess as they break. But anyway, based on the pictures there, the tanks are labeled chlorine and fluoride at wells 8, 6, and 5. You can see that they are all right next to each other in the same room, which is not allowed. Anyway, next was just a quick slide on the dangers to operators. This is the screenshot from the SDS sheet from the fluoride that we purchased. Just based on what you can see, it is quite dangerous. It will burn your skin if it's touched, and if you get it in your eyes, you will go blind. If you want to look at some really bad pictures, just Google fluoride burns on skin, and that's the risk that there are operators run. And if that wasn't bad enough, the reaction between hydrogen gas and fluoride acid outside of the finished water produces a hydrogen gas, which is poisonous and explosive. Anyway, well 9, as you can see up there, was designed by the DNR when it was remodeled in 2007, and it shows a clear picture of what proper chemical separation should look like. From the outside, you can see the well room, chlorine room, and the fluoride room all have separate doors and separate entrances. This is the fluoride room from the entrance and the exit, all the tanks and monitoring equipment that is required to go inside of it. And then the next is the chlorine room, which is right next to it. And actually, if you look at the picture on the upper left, you can see a window in the upper right, and that's actually looking into the well house. And that's how the operators can actually monitor the chlorine equipment without ever even entering the room, which is an ideal scenario. So looking into, I guess, the options that we explored, we looked into safer forms of chlorine and fluoride, but all combinations of the alternative forms would still require the department to create separate storage areas for each well. And then those are kind of the codes that explain the reason why. I don't need to read all of them. We did also look into the concept of toxic chemical lockers, but ran into, I guess, several potential issues that kind of dissuaded us from them. We asked SEH and had talks with the DNR without a formal submission if these lockers would pass the DNR plan review process. And after talking to a DNR plan reviewer, he would not give us a for sure yes or no answer for that. So Even if they were approved, we would have to rework the entire chlorine feeding systems to fit inside of the cabinet, modify the electrical and ventilation inside of those rooms to make sure that they're properly supplied and vented. Our fear is that we would spend funds on engineering and a formal submission to the DNR for plan review only for it to be denied or give us some sort of partial out of the deficiency of some sort. So we moved on to different options. The other factor going into this is the corrosion control feeding equipment that we have to install at wells 5 and 6 as well too. We have to do that by October 6th of 2023, which Dan said we are on track for. Putting, I guess, these phosphates at those wells will only make those chemical storage areas even smaller. That was the point I was trying to make. So option 1 was building additions on. So yeah, after ruling out other options and considering the space that we have, the first one was to build additions onto each of the wells. Currently, well 6 has the smallest chemical storage room. It would need a slightly larger storage room than the others because it must install the phosphate feeding equipment as well. All of these additions would require special features such as vent fans, fire doors, alarm systems, everything required to store chemicals safely. The scale of this project also does require DNR plan review with documents submitted by a professional engineer. So we asked our professional engineer for a rough estimate of what this would be, and I think I showed this on the last presentation, but they came up with a case that was almost exactly like ours, where Shelby, they had to separate their chemicals, and based on their confines of their building, they had to put an addition onto it. And that addition ended up costing them about $100,000. So multiply that by 3 for us, because we would have to do that at 3 wells, and we're looking at a minimum of $300,000 to separate chemicals properly in our system. Option number 2 was suspend feeding fluoride. It's the second viable option that we have. This brings us immediately into compliance with the DNR for that significant deficiency, because the DNR does not require water systems to feed fluoride. Wells 10 and 11 can be designed with proper chemical storage for the option to feed fluoride in the future again, and the resulting savings would be used for greater infrastructure needs within the water system, like new wells, updated SCADA system, and other things that keep water pumping. And these were actually the slides that I think Dan was referring to from the master plan. I took these out. They kind of show the capital improvement plan for, or I guess the recommendation for the water utility over the next 5 years. Included in that was the addition of ortho-1 polyphosphate at wells 5 and 6, rehabbing well 6, SCADA upgrade as well, but we actually have an updated quote from that, which is significantly more. Pilot testing, and I guess other things that need to be done in the next 5 years. So that total brings us to 1.9 million. And the next was the intermediate needs, another figure from the master plan, same sort of deal, but showing the next 5 to 10 years, totaling up to almost $5 million. So I just did some quick research on some numbers, but I would like to say that I'm not a health expert by that at all. I just looked at reputable sources and tried to give you guys some information. The Wisconsin Oral Health Program follows the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services recommendation of 0.75 milligrams per liter of fluoride in drinking water, and they're safe between 0.7 and 2 milligrams per liter. That is a standard, or that standard is a concentration, not a recommended daily intake, so I kind of tried to figure that out. The National Institute's health recommendation for fluoride intake is 3 to 4 milligrams per day. And then due to the geology of the state, Ripon and much of Wisconsin have a higher naturally occurring fluoride levels in its groundwater than the rest of the country. Our operators regularly test fluoride concentrations both before and after fluoride is added, and on average, the background fluoride concentration is 0.35 milligrams per liter. A little bit of a side note, bottled water labeled as deionized, purified, or distilled may have received enough treatment to only leave trace amounts of fluoride in it, which is not enough to contribute to that daily amount. So I guess they're really counting on you to drink tap water for that accumulation. I found an EPA article on fluoride that a person typically consumes about 1.3 milligrams per liter or milligrams of fluoride while brushing their teeth. So broadly speaking about myself, if I brush my teeth twice a day and I drink at least a liter of tap water, I receive my recommended intake. But again, I'm not a health expert. This slide shows what the surrounding communities are doing with fluoride as well too. We try to put municipalities in this table that are either close in proximity to us or close in population size. The trend that we have noticed is that the larger communities are more likely to be feeding fluoride than those with a population of less than 10,000. And those populations that are less than 10,000 seem to be recently removing those as well too. I can only speculate because I haven't asked, but I would assume that those communities have or had it removed recently were issued the same significant deficiency we were on their last sanitary survey as well. So I guess in conclusion, the decision is up to the council. We either invest $300,000 roughly into old structures that will be decommissioned in the near future, or suspend feeding fluoride and redirect those funds toward projects that will ensure future water treatment and quality. Fluoride addition is a treatment to the water. It's a supplement, similar to how iodine is added to salt. Wells, filtration systems, SCADA upgrades, and infrastructure will ensure water treatment quality and production in the future. I can't deny that there isn't a value in adding fluoride into the water from a community health standpoint, but at the current time, based on the current needs of what the utility are, the greater value is being able to produce good quality water consistently and into the future, which is why as a department, we're recommending the suspension of feeding fluoride. Any questions?
You, I think we need a motion on the, can we have a motion on the floor and then have discussion?
We don't technically need it. I mean, we could put a motion on the floor.
I would like to place a motion on the floor.
Okay.
To suspend the City of Ripon water fluoridation program until wells 10 and 11 are completed.
Okay.
I would second that.
Motion made by Ellen, seconded by Howard. Discussion. Did you have your hand up?
Yep, first question, I guess. Now, we have one well that's going to keep providing fluoride, right?
No, we would.
You're going to suspend
Yes, we
all
would
of it? Wasn't
suspend
there
it.
one that was ready, that was already separate?
9?
Oh,
Below
9. No, but we would suspend it at all 4 wells because as the water mixes throughout the system, you wouldn't be properly dosing the fluoride throughout the whole system if you're only feeding it from one well site.
Okay, so it's going to be completely suspended. Okay.
And I would just caution tying anything to a future well 10 or 11 because we currently have 4 wells. If we decommission one and put 10 on, decommission another, put 11 on, we would be in a situation where 3 of our wells would be capable of producing, or just, we'd build them out that way, but we don't know at that point if that correct distribution of the chemical or the addition in the system will get everywhere. There'll still be one well because we need 4 wells. So there'll always be one well until 12 that will not be able to treat, or we would have to make adjustments on that one. I think there's a way we could maybe do it a little bit differently there, but I would just caution that that would require probably some studying and some resubmission of plans and testing in the system to make sure that we are indeed feeding the entire system appropriately and getting the volume.
The reason for the motion as it is I have no issue with suspending the fluoride program temporarily. We do have, thank you for reiterating what we have as naturally occurring fluoride. I was one of the administrators that developed the Save a Smile program in Fond du Lac County. And initially, it was to help children learn to maintain good oral hygiene and with fluoridation in the or wiping their teeth with a fluoride wash. The problem was the $400,000 earmark that we got from Senators Cole and Congressman Petri ended up being used for acute dental issues as a result of no dental care, no fluoride, and that ate up a program that was supposed to end up being preventative. So I agree with public health that we need to have fluoridation in the water, and we don't meet that level of fluoridation that is recommended. So the idea is to have a system that will eventually provide fluoride. Even going offline for 3 years is too long. I guess a question for Jeremy, you came out initially with some horror stories about what fluoride can do to injure people. How many injuries has the city of Ripon seen as a result of fluoride?
I could poll the operators, but I know that there hasn't been official records kept over the last 10 years because my predecessor did not keep those records.
Sounds like pretty much everything else.
I know that all 4 of them have been exposed, have touched it, have been burned. One was actually temporarily blinded for a short period of time, and vision actually did come back. But we have had incidents, they're just not on paper.
And shame on the city of Ripon's past practice for that. We would have it somewhere in, if their health insurance, if they were taking health insurance from the city, we would have those records somewhere.
Howard.
With the, looking into building wells 10, 11, eventually 12, we will look at building the sites, I assume, to accommodate this separation for a further look at a possible comeback with fluoridation, correct?
Yeah, I think that's the main problem here is every community that this is happening in is likely because their wells were put in place long before the administrative code said that this stuff has to be separated. So as you build out new wells, it's up to the engineers to make sure that they're designing it to the current code. Who knows where fluoridation will be at that point? Who knows where, what other chemicals we will need to add to our drinking water to maintain, I mean, we're talking about phosphates at this point. So we will build that infrastructure out to accommodate those changes or those options for treatment. You know, but we can't also, you know, predict in 10, 15 years that the administrative code is not going to change as well.
Of course. Thank you.
Other questions or discussion?
I guess one thing you mentioned was the pipes, that fluoride corrodes the pipes. I guess, what does that mean for our entire water system?
It's safe within the water system at a low concentration. Yep. Yep. But the vapors in the storage area where it is just kind of, I mean, the chemical sits in there for, I don't know, 20 or 30 years as it's storing chemicals and slowly just eats away at everything just because of its corrosive nature. But as far as the tubing, the pumps, all the containers, everything for fluoride is specialized for fluoride because it is that corrosive.
I guess I will just add, I realize that this is not something that meets the needs of our entire community, but I know that we have a local dentist office that has donated, for example, St. Peter's Episcopal Church has that blessing box, primarily for food, the people that need it, but there is the typical fluoridated toothpaste that has been donated that is available for community members in need.
Other questions or discussion? David.
Since we have guys here, so we have 0.35 without adding anything instead of the 0.7. What kind of impact is that?
That has been proven in studies that it's suboptimal. The benefits in order to prevent decay are at 0.6, 0.5 at the very least, but 0.6 on the average. That's why the standard is 0.7 and 1.5. The other thing to consider is the effect of cost to the members of the community. And I believe the CDC, some of my colleagues from the CDC sent a paper as well to address that as well, that it does translate into dental costs to individual members of the community. One thing I can also bring up is I'm working with the Wisconsin Hospital Association on issues with non-traumatic dental pain presentations into the emergency department. In 2021, Fond du Lac County had approximately 321 visits to the emergency department specifically for dental pain and dental infections. That was the primary diagnosis. For those that had a secondary diagnosis of a dental infection, the number was 482. If you look at the average cost of an emergency room visit, it runs anywhere from $750 to $1,500, depending on the hospital and its classification as a trauma center. So if you translate those numbers into cost, for the 321, it would be $240,750 for the 750 per visit, and for the 1,500, it's $481,500. If you're looking at the 482, using the same calculations, it's $361,500 for the 750, and for the 1,500 per visit, it's $723,000 that you're looking just for potential cost to Fond du Lac County, which translates into cost to the taxpayers.
Howard.
See, we got you talking. Fluoride isn't the wonder drug cure-all for tooth decaying products. A lot of it comes down to proper foods and eating habits, proper oral hygiene practiced. So eliminating the fluoride is not losing a wonder drug, per se. Because we do still have some natural fluoride in the water. Growing up on a farm outside of town here in that, we had our own well, Brothers and sisters all had good, strong teeth.
Yeah, but Mr. Hanson, do you know what the percentage was the well tested for the amount of fluoride that was in there? Because
On the farm?
each community is different.
On the farm? No, but we were out of the Brush Lake Aquifer,
Yeah,
which I think Ripon is part of that also.
because I've seen aquifers in other areas where at one end of the aquifer, it's 0.8, and another end it's 0.2.
Right.
There's a difference to the community, so that could have been an effect as well. And I'm not going to disagree with you that, your own personal care is affected, but what we can't forget is those individuals that can't do that. For example, I was in clinical practice for 38 years. In that time, I treated geriatrics and special needs patients. And many of those, literally, water fluoridation was the only thing they could get other than me going in. Because it was difficult, if not impossible, for some of the staff and guardians and family members to properly brush their teeth. And granted, it's difficult to get them to eat properly. So we don't want to marginalize other people within that group either. And that's where I come in with the state, as I try to provide whatever I can for the health and safety of everyone. Now, I'm not disagreeing with you completely, because you're right. A lot of it is your own personal home care, but I have to look at the entire picture for everybody.
And it's also your eating habits, what you eat,
Right.
make a big difference.
Right, but unfortunately, a lot of times, people who are well below the poverty level, their eating habits and they're in food deserts, they don't always get the kind of good quality of food they should be eating from a dietary standpoint.
Thank you.
Did you?
Any other further questions or discussion? John?
The motion right now is to
Suspend.
accept the suspension until 10 and 11 are online. That would,
Until completed.
but that won't help us with fluorination yet, correct?
No, I mean.
So when they come online, we still can't add
we would have to evaluate it at that time. The infrastructure would be built to accommodate chemical treatment. And then we would have to kind of come back and turn the switch back on with whatever council is at that point, you know, and that's where this could be, you know, if we we just did a well site investigation for 2 wells with plans to build 1 in the next 3 to 5 years. Depending on the cost of that, the chances and likelihood of us doing back-to-back wells, you know, to get things done in the next, you know, 2 wells in the next 10 years, probably unlikely. I mean, we're probably looking at another 5-10 years after if wells are coming in at $2 to $4 million a crack. So I think this sort of puts we talked about this with the DNR. Is this temporary? Is it permanent? It really is just a suspension. And when we can accommodate it, we can bring it back. And that is under this direction, well 11 completed. But that, like I said, could be a decade.
But would that, if the motion passes, then that would force us to do some changes to the other 2 wells?
No. No.
Okay.
We would build the other 2 wells out with that option, and then the remaining wells would be, there's 1 well that would remain online.
Right.
Well 9 that can accommodate it. Unless that one frankly tests positive for, which it did for PFAS, then we're in a really bad way. So there's a lot of moving parts.
Right.
There's a lot of moving parts here with millions of dollars that we have to spend to get to a point where we can properly put this back in place.
I just don't want to suspend it and then have the city have a burden of extra cost, you know, to get the fluoride back in there right away after the 2 wells are up.
No, we would plan for it.
Okay, that's good. Okay, that takes care of it.
The motion was made just simply to make sure that the idea that the suspension is temporary.
Right, okay.
Carrie?
I just wanted to point out a couple of things. One was some of the communities that are not fluoridating is because they're over the 0.7 naturally occurring. So keep that in mind as you looked at that one slide. I know there's 3 communities on there that do not fluoridate because they're over the recommended levels. The other thing is, when I spoke with the DNR today, they did say that there would be no issues with doing the lockers. I know it's a temporary thing, you're correct, there's ventilation that'll have to be done, there's electrical, like all that stuff would have to be explored. But again, that would be something that could potentially be a temporary solution until you get your existing new wells built. So that's something to consider as well.
So a temporary solution that we're going to have to spend a lot of money on to eventually get rid of? Yeah.
Well, as I said, there's grant funds or community partners that would be willing to help cover.
Grants are not guaranteed.
So I'll just take a step back here. So this is, you know, we're not the only community that has wells like this. This is happening in Jefferson, Waterloo, all over the state. The DNR is coming in and saying this. The DNR cannot give you an opinion of what to do. It is a local decision. They notify DHS. DHS then comes in and provides the information. I can't tell you what the conversations I have had with the DNR. They're probably very different than the conversations DHS has had with them. And the solution they are recommending would be generally the direction we as staff have found as well, with our engineers' input as well. So, you know, this eliminates a lot of potential issues, money, time, energy that we frankly, with the system we have inherited and we have not invested in over the last 15 years, we do not have the luxury right now to spend this money and use this time to talk about this particular issue when we just had a boil order, when we're dealing with PFAS, and when we're dealing with trying to create safe drinking water with new wells and new infrastructure. So that's sort of where we are at as a local community with this issue and why we are bringing forward the suspension.
Dan?
Just one note to Adam's point about what would be left without fluoride. We had in that short-term capital plan for well 8 the major rehab of the filtration system, and that large ticket item would be the opportunity to add a dedicated chemical room at well 8 so that one would be compliant at that time. So 5 would go away, 8, 9 would be compliant, and just be left with 6 that would be non-compliant.
and 6 would be replaced when we bring on line 11, correct?
Yep.
I guess we haven't
Likely.
gone to the extent of saying 6 goes away in the master plan, but certainly a discussion worth having when you size well 11 in terms of a capacity. It all comes down to firm capacity. You know, what are you at with your largest well out of service once you have the 2 new wells online? So.
All right, thank you. Very briefly.
Yeah, I'm not privy to what the itemized amount of the 300,000 would be. What I do want to clarify is the locker situation is not temporary. What she was talking about when she was talking about temporary is the suspension to get things up and running. There's no question that you still have to do proper ventilation, et cetera. But there are communities in the state that have had these lockers in use for 10 years with no problem. It's not a temporary solution. So I want to emphasize that it is a permanent solution. Each one of those lockers runs on an average of about $2,700. So you need $16,200 for the 6 lockers in question. Now, I don't know what your additional costs are going to be to get the ventilation tubing and everything else. That you'd have to let us know. We don't know what those numbers are, and I would be disingenuous if I said I did.
Thank you. Any more discussion from the council? Howard?
When would we be looking at taking this offline?
I guess if it was approved.
If it was
or
approved?
accepted, we would probably just keep feeding until we didn't have any left. And then
Okay.
it would just cease after that.
Rough idea, timeline?
I would have to talk to the operators to see how much we have in stock right now.
Okay, so we're looking maybe the end of the year?
A month or 2 probably.
He's back there shaking his head in.
1 or 2 months.
1 or 2 months, okay.
I don't recognize you thought it had one.
Any further discussion or questions? Thank you, Jeremy. Motion on the floor is to temporarily suspend City of Ripon fluoridation program until the completion of wells 10 and 11 to revisit. All those in favor of the suspension?
Yeah.
We'll do a roll call.
Iverson,
Yes.
Schatzinger,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Gallup,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
Kotsky,
No.
Sorensen,
Yes.
Split.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is the Sandmar Lot Housing Program. Adam.
So in your packets, you have a program called the Sandmore Lot Housing, Lot Sale Housing Program. So working with Rick Reed, the developer out in Sandmar, we have come up with a program to offer residential lots for a $5,000 payment to interested parties to build a house on. That obviously is in the TIF district. We have a few years left. We've talked about extending it. There have been 4 properties, 4 houses built in Sandmar. There remain 50 or so lots that need houses on them. So in working with Rick, he has offered up lots 9 and 24 and 27 to 36. So that's kind of the main middle part, and then the section to the north of that main middle part. So quite a few lots. How this would work is interested parties would come to the city. They would identify a lot that they would like to purchase. We would acquire that lot for $25,000 directly from Rick Reed. We would then transfer that property directly to the interested party for $5,000. They would then have an assessment placed on that property if they do not or fail to build a house within the timeline submitted there. So $5,000 would be done at closing. If they do not build a house or have a house built within 1 year of closing, they're assessed $6,000. The next year, $6,500, and then the following year, $7,500. That is to incentivize them to buy a lot and then build on it immediately. So we begin collecting increment from that house. Basically, we're sort of funding this through not only the tax increment received from a house, generally speaking, a house out there at around $300,000 is going to generate well over $5,000 of taxation and property value, as well as we are going to fund a portion of this from our housing program funds. This is the first program we are bringing forward in response to the housing study. We have TID 4 that just closed, about $317,000 coming into that fund. And then there's an existing $149,641, so $467,000 will be in that fund to promote housing programs. So this is the first program we're rolling out. We will then bring other programs forward over time here and allocate funds to each. This basically is the first one out of the gate from the housing study and tries to lower the cost for people. Lots out there are currently listed for around 30+ thousand. So this is a significant opportunity for people. Lower cost lots to build a house in Sandmar. That is what I
Object
have.
here is to capture the increment.
What's that?
The object here is to capture the increment by extending the life of the TIF.
Yeah, the object here is really, I mean, to extend the life of the TIF district and capture the increment on it. You know, and basically that deferred payment or that deferred assessment, that $20,000 gets paid back in approximately 3 to 3 years or so by tax increment alone. It's kind of, we're fronting it and then paying ourselves back in tax increment. We did do housing grants out there in TID 7 until the project expenditure period. So we are out of the ability to do that, but we were offering at one point, I believe, $28,000 to build a house, around that amount. So this is less than that, but less time in the TIF district. This is based off of programs that I've seen in the state as well as operated in my previous community that had a ton of success in selling lots.
Any questions, discussions, or motions?
Is that the only incentive? Because we do have that Ripon, not renew, but Ripon.
Build?
Build, yes, thank you.
Yeah, so this would be the only incentive.
The only, okay.
We would not be going and giving them a Build Ripon program as well. So we'll stipulate that in the Build Ripon guidelines as well. So,
okay.
But yes, we're not going to allow people to double dip.
Would anyone like to make a motion to approve this program?
I'll move to approve it.
Second.
Second. I'm sorry, I was sneezing. Couldn't hear you.
That's all right. Any discussion?
Roll call.
I'll just point out that I'm sure it's not coincidence that this comes on the feet of our recent housing study. So we need more housing in the city of Ripon, and so this, to hopefully meet, to spur some of that, to meet.
Yeah, this is twofold. I mean, the first is the housing study coming out of that, making housing more affordable, needing to address the need for the 19, 20 single-family homes, as well as then just the TIF District 7 is not doing as well as we had hoped. There's a lot of opportunity to build out there, so we need to really continue some momentum out there to build that out for the long term. As I said too, this is the first program out of the gate from the housing study. We'll come back and look at Build Ripon, a first-time home buyer grant, and a paint. So we will do more.
I'm looking real quick here. Is there a square footage minimum?
There's restrictive covenants on the properties, so they will have to be met. And yes, there are covenants that. Yep.
Further questions or discussion?
Yes.
Do a roll call vote for the approval of the Sandmar housing program.
Split.
Yes.
Sorensen.
Yes.
Gadsden.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Iverson.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, our next item up is the Director of Public Works position recruitment. As you all probably saw last week, our current Public Works Director has announced his retirement. So we're looking to fill this position first of the year, I believe.
As soon as possible.
As soon as possible. We have received 2 recruitment bids with varying levels of service. Adam, would you like to explain?
Yeah, so in the staff report, you can kind of see the background here. Mike has submitted his intention to retire December 9th, 2022 will be his last day working for the city. So then I reached out to both GovHR and PAA. We are familiar with both firms. PAA did the recruitment for city administrator, and then GovHR did the recruitment, helped with the recruitment for the city clerk position. This is obviously a very important position, and really the 2 proposals here for professional outreach and recruitment are an attempt to get the most qualified and largest applicant pool that we possibly can. These 2 companies have run searches, like I said, for the city as well as for multiple communities, have done recent public works director searches. They have found them to be fairly difficult. You can see that there's a varying price, so GovHR is around $6,000 all in. That's kind of your light recruitment, where they spend some time mining through their catalog of people, submitting things to them to gain interest, helping us with postings, and helping us kind of weed through candidates to then say, you know, here's a final list, here you go. And then PAA has kind of a 2-prong approach of 2 steps. One is for around $9,900, and that is a little more extensive in that it adds like a video and it adds a little more action by them, I would say, to recruit. They are Wisconsin-based. GovHR is out of Illinois, but certainly capable. And then PAA also has a larger option, which is the full recruitment, which they then guarantee the candidate for a year, and that's like $12,000 something. So I wanted to bring these 2 forward as possible options to assist with the recruitment. You know, certainly I understand my role in it in trying to recruit, but we don't have the ability to knock on all the doors like some of these do, as well as the approach to where we get this out into the World Wide Web. It's very costly and time consuming, so they do a lot of that. So I do recommend some level of professional recruitment to help place this position, to keep this moving forward. The second piece of this is this the ordinance. We can talk about that in a second, but we need to update that. And the goal would be, generally speaking, if we went with a lighter recruitment or a lighter package, we would then review with myself, the mayor, council president, and public works committee chair to select 3 finalists and bring 3 finalists in for interviews to the full council. And then I will just note that the recommended salary range is $80,000 to $90,000 depending on qualifications, and we will work on a position announcement. There will be no requirement for a PE because we probably can't afford it. The going rate for a PE is over $90,000.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky. Bellevue just hired one for $96,000.
And we work with MSA anyway, and they've been very good to us, so.
And SEH and whoever else wants to do work in Ripon.
Right, exactly.
Howard?
As one being on council that just went through the recruitment for our city administrator, and that we did go with PAA. They were very thorough. I thought the money that we spent with them, we got great value. And they were very personal on going through their steps with the council and the city, and just did a phenomenal job. One of the things I like about theirs is that they do have that 1-year guarantee, which you hope you never need, but you never know. So I would like to make a motion that we go with PAA to fill the position of city engineer.
Do you want to specify which service?
I would like to go with the full service. There's a guarantee in with that, which is a safety net for us. And that's basically what we did with the last position that we contracted with them for. And like I said, it was a phenomenal job that they did.
So the motion is to go with the PAA proposal for the full service recruitment. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Oh, never mind.
Sorry, Doug.
Be quick.
No, it's okay.
Moved by Howard, seconded by Page. Discussion? Jolene, is your hand up?
No, well, I just wanted to make sure that it was stating that this 1 year, and that means if someone doesn't work out within 1 year, they will
They will redo the process again at no cost to the city.
But I didn't see where that, I agree that I like that it's only included in option B.
For the extra $3,000 roughly,
Where does it
that's
state that?
well worth it. Like I say, we worked with Chris Schwartz,
Yep, I remember.
and he was hands-on and did an excellent job. And hopefully we can get Chris to work with us again, seeing that he does know our city and what we look for, the quality.
I guess my main question, where does it state that it's only in option B and not included in option A?
7, our commitment to Ripon. Public administration provides the following guarantees, cost of option B only. If the initial search is not successful, and then if the candidate resigns or is terminated for cause within 12 months. So page 21 of their proposal. And that's for option B only.
Option B only, okay.
John?
I agree with Howie. It was an easy process. They were straightforward, honest. Everything went really smooth, so I recommend.
And it actually went quicker than what we had anticipated.
Yes.
With them doing most of the legwork.
Well, they seem to have, they're from Wisconsin, they've got all the ties here. They'll have people already in mind.
Yep, as they did with our city administrator
Yes.
position. So.
They already had.
Look at what happened. Look at
Please, short straw.
Is there a
Biting our lips right now on this.
Is there a point?
Gotta make it feel good though that we're asking for the same service.
No, they're good. I mean, and I've talked to both of them. They both helped us on varying levels.
Yep.
The reason it's not a full scope from GovHR is because the GovHR proposal for a full recruitment will be north of $15,000. It's just, they get into very expensive world, and I think you guys saw that with this position when GovHR was like $22,000 and PAA was around $12,000, so.
I think the importance of having this, the 1 year guarantee, especially with it being a hard, maybe not less than desirable position, but one that it seems to be more difficult to fill. I think, having that contingency plan built into there, I think is well worth the extra, the insurance.
I'd like to call the question.
Anyone like to second that call?
Second.
All right.
No need to, but that's okay.
What?
That's okay, we got the call.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor of accepting the PAA full service recruitment proposal?
I think
say
you
aye.
have to vote on
Vote
calling
on the call.
question.
You gotta vote on the call.
Oh,
Sorry. Not sorry.
all those in favor of calling the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right. All those in favor of approving the PAA recruitment full service proposal, say aye.
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 Opposed? That is approved. Now, the second half of this discussion is the amendment to the ordinance for appointing said position.
So basically, you can kind of see the current language, and we're supposed to bring 12 people to And I don't know if we'll get 12 applicants, quite frankly. We hope that with spending that with PAA, we will. But this just takes it to bringing three finalists to the Common Council for interviews, and then the administrator will appoint with a 2/3 confirmation by the Common Council. It doesn't change the confirmation or anything like that. It just changes the specific nature of select 12 applicants for the position and provide an available list. We're going to take that down to 3. That's just a better number, and then bring forward those 3 to the council for finalists. That would be my recommendation, just to not. I don't know why that's an ordinance. 12 people. I don't.
That's right.
So.
Usually it's an ad hoc thing.
It's.
I'll make a motion to amend the appointment ordinance from 12 to 3 applicants.
Or as written, okay.
So as written.
As written, yeah,
There you go. Second. Moved by Paige, seconded by David. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the ordinance amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
That is approved. All right, next we have a borrowing resolution for our new plow truck, or soon-to-be new plow truck.
So yeah, this is a borrowing resolution. Our finance director Amanda is in attendance too. We did reach out to multiple banks locally and our current bank, Nicolay, and to get rates, and Horicon Bank provided the lowest, best rate. Rates are up, obviously, from what we're traditionally borrowing at, but this is $188,000 at 4.8% over a 3-year term to borrow for the plow truck that we hope to pick up in the next month and a half.
Ellen.
I move we accept the borrowing resolution for the plow truck purchase.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Ellen, seconded by Paige. Any discussion on the borrowing resolution?
You don't think we have to be more specific with putting the amount in?
It's in there.
Well, for $188,000 at 4.8% over a 3-year term. Thank you.
Any discussion? Questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the borrowing resolution, say aye.
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 Opposed? That is approved. All right, next, a new step in our budget process, resolution to publish the summary budget.
I have a question, point of order. I don't know if this is a Lud question or an Adam question. Would this be a time to revisit an item in the budget that we looked at our last meeting?
I think that this is an appropriate time to seek any changes or anything you would like to see changed before it goes to summary
public?
budget publication.
I would agree.
Okay.
So,
Do I do that before there's a motion on the floor?
ahead.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
you start with that.
All right, thank you. Okay, I've been thinking about this, and I want to congratulate staff on putting together a really nice budget. However, I would like to go back. I'm troubled by a couple of things, and I want the public to know, as well as my colleagues on the council, that the term levy and property tax are interchangeable. I tend to say levy just because it's more efficient. I don't have to say 2 words, I only have to say 1. So I want to talk about levy. And the fire district, as well as the library, have fund balances that are hundreds of thousands of dollars. And both have associations that raise money for them. And that is terrific. However, we can't get a breakdown on what monies have been raised by those 501c3s, whether it's the Library Foundation or the Friends of the Fire District. No one can give an accounting of the monies that have been donated. John donated money. There's no detail on that for the library. It's for the building fund. So it appears we have no internal controls for the library or the fire department. We are working on internal controls for the fire department. And I'm concerned about the fact that the library has over $500,000 in their fund balance. And apparently it's come to my attention that $200,000 of that is levy. It is property tax. It's money that's been moved over there and then saved. I love libraries, but I'm also a watchdog for taxpayer money. And there has to be a balance here. I would propose that the council remove the 1% increase from the library and that they be asked to use some of that $200,000 in levy as fund balance. We will be doing something similar. That will be the proposal at the fire district budget hearing, because as a steward of taxpayer money, we try to give them the best services for their investment in the city of Ripon. We have a great library, but we also have a library that's sitting on property tax. It is sitting on levy. You cannot, in good conscience, ask the taxpayers to continue to give increases in levy when you are still in saving levy. It should be expended within the fiscal year it is levied. So my proposal is that we use some of that fund balance to offset that 1%. And in addition, as the fire district will be doing, can create internal controls so that there is tracking of the money, whether it's Friends of the Library have raised it or they've been given a gift, if they've been given a gift for a capital improvement or for collections. By also reducing the library by 1%, we can reduce the overall mill rate for the taxpayers of Ripon. Now, I know everybody thinks I'm a raging liberal, but not when it comes to property tax. I cannot, in good conscience, vote if somebody is sitting on $200,000 in levy, and it's in a savings account. Why are we taxing the taxpayers more? I mean, if I were to have my way, I would say reduce it by $50,000 and take it out of their fund balance, and then still develop internal controls for it. So that's my spiel.
I'd like to say something.
Go ahead, Doug.
I'm not really sure at this point that there's levy in there. I know you all suspect it, and it may end up to be true, but I'm going to work it through and find out if there is or not, and we're going to move forward to see if levy has been commingled with the funds at the Oshkosh Foundation. I'm not sure that it has, but I mean, I understand that you want to go that route, but I would disagree at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. John.
Well, if there's no records, how could it could be all levied money? So.
No, I don't think it's all. I don't think it's even close to that. But I mean, I understand your concern. We don't have any. With the fire board, I mean, yeah, I think you could point to that. That's something that's easily pointable because they did commingle and they didn't know and they didn't pay attention. That's what it looks like. With the library, I've been told no, we kept everything separate. So it's going to take the action of the board to have it audited and see where the money's come from. At this point, I have to say I don't think there is.
They're not.
But we'll have to.
No. So
the foundation part isn't audited, but the city's portion is.
So basically, we had a conversation with the auditor, and you can see here on the fund balance here, the library's fund balance beginning of the year in 2020 was $382,000, and that jumped to $515,000. They have about $200,000 in cash at the end of 2021 and about $485,000 in the community foundation. So there has been a separation of funds. The biggest thing becomes that cash and how that has gotten there, and that's an accumulation of leftover budget annually of unspent tax levy and other fees, fines, and forfeitures. We're projecting out in their current budget them to be around $15,000 to $20,000 revenue to expenditure in the positive again. So we anticipate that going up again. There was a freeze proposed last year because we saw the same trend of saying, look, you have not spent all the money that is being allocated to you. In talking with CLA and how they control their donations, that is a separate concern, I believe, to this conversation, being that there is $200,000 in cash that is sitting there.
And I'm not requesting that they cut services. We're talking about 1% in levy, which is a little over $4,000. I'm just saying it is disingenuous to sit on levy and then ask for more. You just don't do it.
Julian.
It seems like there is a little bit of some confusion here of folks disagreeing if there is or isn't there. But I think the point is well taken that there are some internal controls, and it sounds like the board, they're going to listen. It's going to be brought back to them that they're going to be looking at this moving forward, developing some things. At the $200,000 level, we know that they are looking at renovations, building on. I agree that our library is phenomenal, but I have to also state that I've had a number of, especially younger families, say, are you looking at other communities and what they offer? And we need to amp up our library. It is the one place that is sort of the great equalizer of you don't have to pay to get in. It's free books. They're doing so many services that regardless of socioeconomic status, people can access. So I guess if there was one area that we're thinking, where can we put the public taxpayer money for good? Wow, what an incredible investment.
Well, they were sitting on $200,000 of taxpayer money. And nobody's asking to cut services. We have a great library. However, we also have an obligation. There's a balance between the library, and no one's asking to cut their services. The services remain the same. What we're saying is the balance with the taxpayers. Why do we increase our mill rate? Because they don't need the money.
If they're not spending the money year over year over year, why should we keep giving them more and more money if they're already not spending what we're giving them?
We had a similar discussion like this with their Havoc unit that they replaced in that.
Oh, HVAC?
Oh, HVAC.
HVAC?
It was a similar thing. You've got money sitting there, but they wanted us to pay for it. It's always great to sit on a savings account, but sometimes push comes to shove it,
But that's why you need internal controls. Is this X amount for new building? Is this for collections? Is
Some
this for
accountability
this? Yeah.
is what
Yeah.
it comes down to.
Yeah. And nobody's saying we want to take the foundation money. We don't. That's theirs. We're saying you can't keep building a savings account on levy. So I don't know if you want a motion. I don't know what we're.
Yeah, I think you
If
need
you'd
a
like to
motion.
make a motion to
I would
your
like
request.
to make a motion to reduce the library budget's increase by 1%, so their levy is the same as last year.
So that would be $448,344.
It's a loss of like $4,000 and some change.
Is there a second to that motion? Moved by Ellen, seconded by Paige. Discussion.
Just to highlight for the public library funding is a different animal than anything else in the city. The library board has complete control over the monies that are levied and given to the library. The city has no say in it whatsoever.
Beyond
So
setting the dollar amount.
that's all, and that is it. And so I think that's important for everybody to understand. That's different than every other department in the city.
And all of the public libraries in Fond du Lac County receive money from Fond du Lac County also, and I'm not sure that the public is aware of that. They receive tax levy from Fond du Lac County.
David?
What we have to look at, though, is what is the library doing with the money? And, you know, they're looking to add on. They're not doing anything devious. I would say we're helping them to make it a better library because, like you were talking about, everyone here uses the library. I mean, it's pretty much a gimme. And I don't see a problem with making the library a better place to be. And by, we're playing with dollars here. They're not doing anything underhanded with it. They're trying to put an addition on and do a remodel. And they're very good stewards of the money. And it makes it sound like we're punishing them because they're not spending all the money every year. They're looking at a long-term, let's make the library as best we can, the best we know how. And by doing this, we're punishing them by taking money away because they didn't spend it.
But David, my perspective to that is if they've ended the last several years with $20, $30, $40, $50,000 that they haven't spent, they should have spent that on services or on collection. The city has allocated the money for them to do so, and if they're not spending it year over year, they're not providing the services that they could.
And it's not a punishment, it's an accountability issue. It's disingenuous to take taxpayer levy for operations, because levy is for operations. It is for operations. It is not for a capital campaign. That is what a 5-year capital improvement plan is, and that if they want to build something, they need to develop a plan and bring it to the public. It is disingenuous to take levy and use it in a savings account. We levy on an annual basis. Those levy funds should be used within that budget. You do have carryover. You do have some departments that will come up short, and that's his job to balance that all out. Yep. This is not punitive. This is asking for accountability and responsibility in their actions. Now, libraries are different. Fire districts are different. I don't hold them necessarily responsible for the actions of a city for the past 10 years. This is not on any one department. This is on a 10-year practice of squirreling money away. You're only as good as the information you're given, and that's what we're seeing across the board.
Billy?
Alternatively, we could pass the budget, we could go forward with, as it was recommended from staff to move forward with publishing the budget as proposed, and now the board hears us, and moving forward in future years, we can make sure that this practice that you outlined does not continue here. I still feel a little bit unsure that I have yet to really see proof that this is levy taxpayer money in this amount, and so I also think that it's good we're talking about this, they hear this, and that's an alternative, right? Is that they hear us, we know that this practice is not continued in future. As we talked about, there was no proof that the library is not really stewarding their money well with the services they can offer. We know that they have plans to renovate, expand, but that could be an alternative here, correct? So if we vote down this motion right now, I mean, we're also making a statement that in the future, hear us, what we're saying.
Did you hear what Lud said? They're a different animal. They don't have.
You don't
to
have
listen
any
to us.
oversight.
We have nothing.
Just give them the money.
Give them the
and
money,
as
they do
wish.
whatever they want with it. You can't ask them to break out other than justify when they come to the city why they're asking for that amount of money. So you aren't in there micromanaging what they do. They can pay every single dollar that you levy into the salary of the director and the assistant director. They have that right under state law. Just, I want to clarify that. That's the reason I made my comment. Not that I'm on either side of this. It's just, it's not a usual and customary responsibility. Used to be in the statute, they changed it where you had to always increase, correct, Adam? You had
Yeah,
to-
maintenance of effort for libraries
Yeah.
was a 3-year rolling average that got
Right.
repealed with Act 10. So now, and this is part of that whole repeal and that change of maintenance of effort goes back to this kind of very concept of you have libraries that if you have a 3-year average, you got to keep that maintained. And basically, you saw a lot of libraries having significant fund balances and the inability to cut these things. In talking to the auditors, this takes a portion of a levy that could go to other things as well. So, I mean, when we're prioritizing the full scale of everything we're doing, whether that's a tax, mill rate decrease, or if we have a project that we want to do, looking at this collectively and saying that this fund has cash that it can use, and it has $200,000 sitting there, and $485,000 in a foundation account. The other side of this is that accounting of the $485,000. That is all for their building project. That is fine if they have allocated it that way. But some of these funds in the foundation account have been there for a long time for other purposes. They could have just been a donation to say, here, somebody passed away, here's $20,000 to use for the library. So then when the library comes and says, we need $80,000 for an HVAC improvement, and the city pays that and takes a project off the capital list that could have been paid for, but that was put in place of that, and they have $200,000 in cash or a $20,000 donation unrestricted, we should ask that that get used first, to not sacrifice something else when they have the means to do it another way. So there are multiple layers to this that I have engaged the library director on and the auditor over the last year, and have not gotten the answers I want, other than last week saying there's $200,000 worth of cash at the end of 2021, and their fund balance increased by $133,000 and is now over $500,000.
So I guess I'm a little bit confused, and that my only point is, again, I think this is good, important discussion in moving forward practices, and I understand we can't direct it, we're not micromanaging, but I'm pretty clear that the next time the budget is brought forward, they're going to know about this discussion that was had, and they will think about that when they make their ask. I guess my point is, it says here, staff, doesn't it, that it is recommended that we move forward. If this was a concern that staff had, then I guess why wasn't brought up?
I brought up the fund balance question about library funding at the budget hearing.
We discussed it.
Where there was a 20% or whatever increase, or 9% increase originally totaling $30,000. The library director sent council members emails asking for 1%, so we included the 1% because it could fit. Mm-hmm. In reviewing the financial information that we've received and talking to our auditor, knowing some of this information, and the comment about fund balance at the last meeting regarding the fire district primarily, it brought the question to mind of if we want to reduce their amount and reduce property tax levy, because there are other things, as you can see, we need to increase, and there will be an increase in the levy already. So from a global perspective, if we have the opportunity to use existing funds that are sitting in the bank account to reduce the tax levy, we need to consider that. And that discussion didn't happen till Thursday or Friday of last week with our auditors, and we've tried to sort of kind of negotiate that while we're getting mill rate information in. So we just got assessed value on Friday. So all this is kind of coming to a head. Certainly there's a public hearing This is just the summary budget, so all this does is go into the paper saying this is what is going to be reviewed at the public hearing, which will be set, and then that public hearing, people can come and say, you know, make a pitch to do this, do that, whatever, and the council can change the budget that night as well. So, you know, I think this conversation may have happened, you know, at some point regardless, based on the numbers. And I encourage, I think Doug has a meeting with CLA, I encourage him to talk with Amber and get the same information I was provided this past week.
Just following up, that's a very good point by the city administrator. There is going to be a public hearing. And at that point in time, again, it's just a majority vote of this body to pass the budget. This is not passing the budget, this is publishing. And I think those of us who have been in city government for as long as we have know how many people normally show up at the time of the public hearing. So the idea that you publish a budget that resembles what you really intended is a credit to the council and a credit to the administration. And that's why this evening we entertain the motion to amend the notice, not the budget.
Yes.
Amend the notice that goes out to the public is all that the motion will be from Ellen. So it's important, and libraries are complicated, and Act 10 changed the world, and the point that's being made very loud and clear, we're not cutting the library. That is not the motion that's on the floor in terms of the notice to the public. We are not cutting, we're noticing that we're going to stay stable with the dollars that they have received in the past. That's the motion. Did we get a motion a second? Did we clarify that?
Yes.
Yeah, so just so it's clear to the world, it's a motion to amend the notice, not the budget.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, and I might have.
It's more fun being on this side than on his side.
So the motion on the floor is to amend the budget notice.
Very good.
Yeah.
Returning the library portion to the same number as last year's budget. Adam, can you give me that number?
$448,344.
Thank you. Any further discussion on that motion?
Roll call.
Keep it handy.
Well, yeah, I buried it now, Lud. Thanks.
Oh, we got somebody online here.
Somebody needs to, wow, it's one sheet of paper. Where did I put it?
See where the eyes are coming from.
I've used it like 6 times already.
Would you like me to do it?
No, I can do it. You can do it if you want.
All right, roll call vote. Hanson.
Yes.
Gallops.
No.
Iverson. Doug, are you there?
Sorry, I had you muted. No.
Schatzinger.
No.
Sorensen.
Yes.
Split.
Yes.
Kane.
Yes.
Gotsky.
No.
4-4 tie.
We are tied.
Mr. Mayor?
We haven't had a problem. First one. I vote yes.
Motion carries with the mayor breaking the vote. So that will be reduced to 448,344 in the notice.
Correct. All right, is there a motion to accept the resolution to publish the budget notice?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by David, seconded by Paige. Any discussion on that motion?
I just want to make note that it is Wednesday, November 9th, the meeting. It is Wednesday, not a Tuesday. We have an election on the Tuesday.
That's right.
And the public hearing starts at 7 p.m.
7 o'clock, it will be the regular agenda, and then the first thing will be the public hearing for the budget.
So it's within the council.
Within the council.
Any questions or discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the notice, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That is approved. All right, last regular item is the 2023 city fee schedule review. This is just a discussion at this point.
Yep, so in your packets, we have the fee schedule. So you can kind of see, we start with administrative fees. I think the main, I'll just go over kind of the main changes that we have looked at. So the notary fee, we go from 50 cents to $5. That's the max we can charge. We're just under what everybody else's charges. And then I would just make note that street closure permits, which is new, we have never charged for, but we need to start charging for them because we are providing services to those and probably losing money, but just $20 is a fair amount. And then a firework permit, we don't charge anything, and we're mailing things out and we're losing money there too, so just $5 for that. In terms of then the next page of administrative fees, weights and measures, hotel permit, I'm sorry, I forgot that one. We'll increase that from $7.15 to $15. That's just an annual hotel permit that we require. And $7.50 is just it's by the time we're doing the amount of work for it, it's not enough. Weights and measures, all of these come from the city of Appleton. So we have a contract with them to do our weights and measures program. So they have requested these fee changes. This is what they will charge us. So if we don't charge this out, we will lose money on the program. So we need to adjust those fees up. That's about all of the changes on just general administrative. There are the police department fees. In the police department fees, there are no changes. We then have public works. You can see here that the quarterly recycling fee would go from $10.50 to $12.75, so $2.25 increase per quarter. We had talked about that previously in the budget discussion. So that would be in this. We then have park fees. We eliminated ranges and just went to a flat fee across every shelter for resident and non-resident. So there used to be a range. We certainly can go back to that range. It is up to you. We just felt it was easier to charge one rate and not devalue one shelter over another, because all of our park shelters are important and are valuable. Make them all equal. No. It's just the cost of doing business in the park shelters has gone up. Yes, we do require deposits and whatnot, but we are there on weekends fixing things, and it's just it's not a whole ton of money. Just the base charge we're charging. Beyond that, we did kind of set a price for the Senior Activity Center. We don't hope to really rent that out in the first few months at least. We want to just let it get its feet wet a little bit. We don't, but $250 for the whole thing, and then a deposit with and without kitchen use. And there's a capacity of 125 people, so $2 a person to rent it out. We felt that was a reasonable number for the product and the building that they would receive. Beyond that, pretty much everything remains the same. EMS fees, you will see Mitch is here. He can explain this if he wants to, but I will take a stab at it. All of our base fees and all of our general fees that we charge out are increasing. The reason that is because this list was about 3 pages long, and it charged out from everything from a Band-Aid to a Tylenol to whatever. So we are removing all of those medication and minor charges and going to a base fee. The reason is because it helps with getting more money and reimbursements, because some insurance plans will cover a base fee and they won't cover Tylenol, so or whatever, or Medicaid or Medicare reimbursements don't cover certain things. So we are lumping those costs into the overall ambulance fees in hopes that we recoup more and create less paperwork, less headache. So it's basically, to show up, this is the charge. The only other thing would be a lift assist to staffed facilities, which we do quite a bit, would be a $200 charge. So if somebody falls and calls the ambulance, we would not charge out the actual charge for a call, it would be a reduced charge to help pick somebody back up. But that happens quite a bit, so Mitch asked that we do include that. Generally speaking, those rates as well are done as a rate study by LifeQuest, and they have recommended these be the rates for billing. Okay? Taxi, so you have shared taxi ride service there. I want to talk a little bit about this. I left this screen up. So we have not raised taxi rates, and this is an independent effort outside of this that we will have a public hearing and a resolution to talk about. But taxi is approximately $189,000 in the hole, losing about $12,000 a year. The cost of the taxi service is going up with a new contract, so the monthly contracted service to Brown Cab, the annual cost was around $312,000, $313,000. That'll jump to $375 plus thousand because of just a new contract. So as cost has gone up, as we have dug a hole right here, 189 in the red, we need to adjust rates. So we worked with Brown Cab to do a quick rate analysis, and this is the recommendation. The goal would be to raise approximately $35,000 in additional revenue to help stop the bleeding in that fund. You may ask, well, that is not great. We haven't done a rate increase for 5 years, but this $189,000, I'm talking to the auditor, it's been growing. That deficit has been growing, and they are growing concerned about it because that will eventually need to be paid come due, likely by the general fund, to cover that loss if we do not turn it around. Other communities are making drastic changes to their shared ride services because this is happening across the state. Fort Atkinson, according to Brown Cab, they have the contract there, will be cutting the hours in half and doubling the fare. We're just trying to increase it a little bit, about $1 per ride, and keep it reasonable while continuing to offer the service. Depending on the fare, we've kind of tried to take the increase and absorb it over certain ridership fares, but that is a problem, and we need the rates there. So we are looking at that recommended fee schedule for 2023. And that will just merely cover like probably our loss, maybe help repay some of what we're losing or what we have lost, but that is in the negative. Okay. If you go to utility department, everything pretty much is the same from a water perspective. What we have increased are numbers primarily for sewer rates, 50% increase to the sewer service charge quarterly and the sewer usage charge, 50% increase. So this is mostly because in the financial statements for the wastewater, we lost about $320,000 in 2021 in wastewater. So losing $320,000, the goal in raising these rates would increase revenue by about $500,000 under the direction of the auditor. They feel that that is an appropriate number to start with because it begins building the fund to begin to do capital projects and other things that are needed within the fund. So that will be a recommendation. There will need to be an ordinance change as well. The ordinance currently has all of these rates written into it. We would like to change the ordinance to just say the rates will be reviewed annually or from time to time and set via resolution by the council. Water fees are frozen in this because of PSC requirements, and everything else is pretty much the same. So that is a summary of the fees, everything we charge and what we're recommending be increased. What we would like to do is the ones we can pass, the taxi one outside of this. We will bring forward with a resolution to the council at the budget as well. We have sort of planned out a lot of the budget based on this fee structure as well. So these sort of go hand in hand. This is again something we really haven't done in the past, a comprehensive review of the fees, but something we would recommend doing annually along with the budget process and adjusting the needs where they, as we get information from financial reports. Yes.
I understand why we are proposing to raise the taxi fees. Again, how do you keep operating something that is losing money? But also, I guess I do want to point out the reality. Back when COVID struck and we were looking at, again, we went out to bid, I really tried to do a comprehensive look at our local taxi structure, calling the manager, talking to drivers, and it was sort of shocking to me the number of drivers that stated, especially their older, their senior drivers and the low-income folks, that even at the level of the adult fare of $375 or the senior fare of $250, which sounds so low, how many times our own drivers that are not making much money were asked to take money out of their own pocket because the people that they were picking up did not have the money, and they knew they were driving them to the hospital or they were driving them to the grocery store. And what are they supposed to say? I'm sorry, I'm not going to take you to get food. I'm not going to take you to your medical appointment. So I know that we can't get the fees complicated, but I do wish that there could be some consideration of, I don't know if someone could apply almost for a low-income fare. Or another example of, I used to be a school counselor here in Ripon at the high school. I know for a fact there are students that utilize our taxi service on a daily basis to get to and from school. And so that $1 of a student fare, or no, more than $1, from $2.75 to $1.25. I don't know for those. So I mean, literally, we would have, I believe, our student services, donors trying to find ways that these students could get to school. And I wish that there could be something to work for those daily riders.
So when going through this, we looked at averages across the state, and our current rates are pretty much where everybody's at. Everybody's in the same boat, okay? So just to be clear, this is a common problem. When looking at ridership, adding about $1 to everything, getting to $35,000, that means that basically right now we're taking about 33,000 rides a year. That's what's happening, about 7 to 8, maybe 9,000 a quarter. So we do monthly or quarterly statistics. So we have a good idea of the ridership. About 20% is adult fares, 32%, 31% is senior fares, 11% disabled fares, 13% are student fares. So that takes up about 76% for the rest. We try to basically spread it out, this rate increase, to try to not take one and increase it over the other too much, so it became way too expensive on one spectrum but not on the other. This probably should be more, frankly, or the service is going to have to change if we're going to continue to look at taking this into the whole, because the current trend is taking at $11,000 to $12,000, losing every year will grow because our costs are going to grow exponentially over the next few years in our contracts because of fuel prices and everything. So this is a big problem, and unless we're willing to subsidize it locally with tax dollars, which goes back to the conversation we just had about everything we're doing, the collective finances of the city, this is a way to stop the bleeding for the time being. Yes, it is unfortunate, but we worked with Brown Cab to try to keep these rates in line with what other communities are doing, where they're headed, and to maintain the service level, because the alternative is we raise the rate and we cut the hours that we're running as well. And we could get to that point, that or suspending the program and looking for alternative transportation for these individuals and our residents on a different way. So it's just, these meant to be sustainable. There's always been sort of a local match. The problem is this local match has grown to be a $200,000 hole in our finances. So, it's up to you. If you all don't want to raise these and continue to, I cannot sit here, and our contractor cannot sit here and recommend that we not at least increase something, and our auditors too. are saying this has been a long time coming. We probably would be better off increasing these little by little over a period of time instead of $1 at a time. We would have been in a better position, but that wasn't done. So that's why reviewing it annually is something we're going to do.
So I understand that, why it has to be raised. I just don't want to sugarcoat some of the realities that folks in our community are facing. And as was brought up earlier by folks about health, if folks can't get to their medical appointments, if they can't eat healthy food, we're going to pay for it anyway. So something for the future as we look at the cost. And then the last thing I just want to ask about, for the rental fees in the parks, is there a model where our local, actual, documented nonprofits could get a lower rate? I think of, the Kiwanis, the Rotaries, using our pavilions. It seems a little strange to charge them the same amount as someone who wants a party when, I don't know, is there a model where?
I think there is a list of nonprofits that are not charged. So those who, certainly give back to the parks and pay for a shelter that have donated. Yes. I understand your concern there. Mike, I think, has that list. I don't know who's all on it, but.
We do have that list, and that's something that we should review. I talked to Adam about this, but we just talked about it, I think, last week.
Yeah.
We'll bring that forward, and it's something that we should review.
And if I can interject, the pavilion fee and that stuff, you don't have to turn around and reserve the park, pavilion or whatever. No. You go up there, and if somebody else has reserved it for that date, your group's got to leave. So that fee is guaranteeing you that pavilion. It's guaranteeing that someone from the city will come through afterwards, clean it up, do whatever is needed, so that it, and if I remember, there is a refund if it's left in decent shape. A small amount of that is refunded.
No, the whole
There's
thing
a
is.
deposit
Right.
that's put down. If it's left in good shape, then that's refunded.
The whole deposit
The
is
whole
refunded.
The whole
deposit.
deposit,
Okay.
yeah.
So, it's guaranteeing your organization that
There is also a sheet up there that goes into a slide that says this is reserved by this person.
whatever group. Yeah.
For that period of time.
Yep.
If you go up there and there's nothing there, it's fair game for everybody.
Any further questions on the fee schedule? All right, we'll bring that back in pieces or in whole for future meetings. On to project updates and staff reports. Public Works.
So it's that fall time of the year again, and leaves are falling off. So last week we started our full pickup. We did a little bit the week before. So for instance, we upgraded our vacuums on the trucks to cantilever them, and one of them we added a larger motor. We only ran 2 trucks last week, and we were done by the end of Wednesday, where it would take typically 5 days, 3 trucks. So what I recommend for residents, we always get the question, when will they be there? Okay, you probably get the same thing. If they have it out, 7 a.m. Monday morning, it will get picked up, I can guarantee you. Okay? Get it out there, we'll get it picked up. Right now, we're running three trucks today. It'll be interesting to see how that process is improved. I'm expecting to be done the end of Wednesday is my expectations. I don't know if that's right or wrong, we'll find out, but there's a lot of leaves that have fallen over the course of the weekend with the windy weather, so. Yeah, so that has really helped with our process. So you get calls, 7 a.m. Monday morning, have them out.
So barring snow, how?
Don't even mention that.
Not until we get the new
How
truck.
far into November are you planning on picking up?
Yep, that's the next thing is we will go till the 18th of November. So the questions come up, why stop then? Because those trucks are used as plow trucks.
Yep.
The safety of the roads and people traveling are going to take precedence over leaves.
And people can always take the leaves themselves
That is correct.
out, so.
Tuesdays and Saturdays, it's open till about mid-December. So that's why we convert them, because those are used for plow trucks. Okay?
And remind me, come mid-December, which day is it open? Is it, remains open one day a week in winter time?
Yes, well, I don't know yet. It's kind of see how it goes, but we'll announce that on the Facebook page when that time comes.
Now's the time we should, put our public service announcement, right, that they need to be on the terrace. The leaves do not mix them with sticks.
That is correct. A lot of that information is on the Facebook page. We keep reposting it, they keep resharing it, they keep asking, can you post that? It's been posted. So we keep putting it out there to try to get that message across. Get them on the terrace, try not to put them in the street. Granted, the wind does not help us with them not getting in the street.
And I know in the past, the Green Lake Association would remind us that we are in the Green Lake area watershed, and so not having the leaves, in the street, means that you can pick them up, but also that our leaves are not going into our water system, contributing to phosphorus.
Correct, and Stephanie Prowitz did a great video, and we shared that on our site. It was very good, and I actually, she did a wonderful job on that, and we tried to get that out there for that too.
Your question was, winter hours may not be open on Tuesdays and Saturdays?
Just Tuesdays. It'll only, winter hours are Saturday only.
Okay, that's
Yep.
what I, yeah.
Sorry, did I get that wrong, John?
I probably heard you wrong, because you didn't, I thought you just said
We'll
you didn't know
announce,
what day.
Tuesdays will go away, Saturdays will
Yeah,
stay.
thank you.
Typical.
All right, thank you. Police, EMS, finance. Nope. I will turn to our city clerk, who's going to steal my thunder.
As everybody knows, election time is coming up, November 8th. In-person absentee voting hours begins tomorrow. I'm getting lots and lots of calls at the City Hall. So it starts at 7:30 a.m. and it goes till we close at 4 p.m. That'll be Monday through Friday, no weekends. Also, you need to make sure that you have proof of residency is required if you're going to register to vote, and a photo ID is required in order to actually vote. Also, we are doing the testing on our ice machine. That's a public test, and that's going to be done on November 2nd at 4 p.m., and that's here in the council chambers. Public is welcome to come in and observe. On the election day, November 8th, that is going to, polls open at 7 a.m., they close at 8 p.m. District 1 and 2 is going to be up here in the council chambers, and districts 3 and 4 will be in the basement level, which is where the senior center is right now. We are fully staffed for the election with poll workers, but of course we always encourage residents to get involved in your community as a poll worker, being on a board, being part of a committee or something like that, because help is always, of course, wanted and appreciated.
Naomi, thank you. Can I ask a follow-up? You said that, of course, if someone is newly registering, they need a proof of residency. Can you give some examples of what that would, proof of residency someone would need to have?
That would be like a most current utility bill, such as an Alliant Energy, City of Ripon Utilities. Something that would have the most current within the last 2 months is the date that they like to see on it. But we want something that's government issued that actually shows your address here in Ripon.
And for any college students who may be watching, what's their proof of residency?
I have it. I have a college listing from the college, and so if there is any of them, and I will give you an update too, we did do an open registration day at Ripon College. I forgot when, a week or so ago, I think it was, I forget now. We had 25 students that have registered to vote now. I've had a few of them come in since then because they had heard about it and missed it. So word is spreading. I do plan in the future to do quite a bit more of this with the students and get them more involved and do more things there at the college.
Thank you, Naomi.
And if anyone is planning on mailing their absentee ballot, it must be received by Election Day.
Correct.
So make sure you get that in the mail very soon.
Have a plan.
Yes.
Have a plan.
So if you're coming in person, bring a friend. Everyone votes. Let's see, Adam.
Trick or treat will be 10:30 from 3 to 5. So Sunday from 3 to 5 p.m. So just be ready for that for Halloween. The city has a tree planting program, so we're taking inquiries or interest forms for people to have a tree planted in their boulevard. They're nice, beautiful trees. So if you would be interested in having a tree planted in your boulevard, please go to the city's website. There'll be a park master planning open house on Wednesday night from 6 to 7:30 here, and that is it.
Adam, can you give more information on what a boulevard is in someone's?
The terrace.
Terrace Boulevard, so sidewalk, curb, between those two. It's city right away, but you maintain it. So, so we don't have to raise taxes to go mow everybody's terrace. So then we'll plant a tree there. We'll do the locate, we'll plant it. We'll give you a form after saying here's what tree it was planted there, and then give you instructions for watering it. We just appreciate that, you water it if you do sign up, because we don't really have time to go around and water all of the trees, and we want them to be healthy and replace the 200 trees we've lost in the last year.
Speaking of that, I know we got this money in this program because of the trees we lost of that big storm.
Yes.
But if people, so my guess is priority would be given to people who did lose trees in those areas, but if people didn't have a tree even previous to the storm?
We're just looking for places to plant trees.
Okay,
So
great.
if anybody's interested, we don't really care as long as the right tree goes in the right place and there's an open space, because Mike and I and our staff don't have time to run around town picking up multiple locations to plant trees. And frankly, some people don't like trees, so we don't want to plant a tree in some place that somebody doesn't want a tree, and we want help. So that's why we do it this way. So we kind of get them to take some ownership as a resident, and we pay for the tree. It's a nice boulevard type tree at around 1 to 2 dBH, so it's a healthy tree. We'll put it in the ground. Please just water it and take care of it and let us know if it dies.
And for clarification, is that available to anyone, or does there has to be no overhead power lines? Or
We will evaluate it, but we will not be planting trees under overhead power lines.
or on top of water mains?
Or on top of water mains. We locate everything, we make sure they go in the right space. So some people may call and want one, but if we evaluate their area and they can't fit one, we're not going to plant a tree there. So.
Good. That's all the departments. Oh, water, do you have anything?
We talked a lot.
I've been planting trees.
All right, I do have one appointment for today. It's for the last remaining open position on the library board. It would be for Austin Klinger, or I missed it now. Klingler. I always miss that second L. Would there be a motion to approve this appointment?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ellen, seconded by Jolene. Any discussion?
I will say that I personally know Austin. I know him through church and the community. I know that he has most recently moved from Ohio, and in Ohio he has volunteered at the library there. So I think what an inspiration for someone newer to the community wanting to get involved, and I am really proud to support that.
Anyone else? Hearing none, all those in favor of appointing Austin to the library board, say aye.
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 Opposed? That's approved. Thank you. And thank you, Austin.
Thank you.
Any comments or future agenda items from the council? Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Moved by Paige, seconded by David. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Opposed? We're adjourned at 9:20.